I posted a Twitter video the other day showing off the graphics of 6 Days in Fallujah and the fact that everything is procedurally generated, and a lot of people took interest. And it's one of the strangest games in the world because of its bizarre development history. Welcome to ChaosGaming, everybody. Today we're going to go over everything we know about 6 Days in Fallujah. Absolutely everything. And it is a controversial shooter. It really is. There's a lot of talk about this. So let me know if you're interested in the game. Drop a like and let's dive in. The story of the game starts back in the mid-2000s at a studio called Atomic Games. The team wanted to make this very realistic game about the real-world Battle of Fallujah, which was a 6-day conflict in 2004 during the Iraq War. Now, the game was meant to be a brutally honest depiction of what happened during those 6 days. It wasn't going to shy away from the horrors of war. One of the developers even described it as a survival horror game, and according to the game's director, Juan Benito, many of the insurgents had no intention of leaving the city alive, so their entire mission might be to lie in wait with a gun trained at a doorway for days, just waiting for a Marine to pop his head up. They went door to door clearing houses, and most of the time the houses were empty, but every now and then they would encounter a stunningly lethal situation, which, of course, rattled the Marines' psychology. Now, the development team also interviewed over 70 different people in order to make the game as realistic as possible, and these people included U.S. Marines, Iraqi insurgents, Iraqi citizens, military officials, and even more. They really wanted to deep dive into the psychological aspects of the conflict. However, that realism got them in trouble. The game was originally going to be published by Konami, but in early 2009, the title started stirring up controversy. After all, these events were still extremely recent and fresh, and many people thought it was disrespectful to make a video game about it so soon. So in April of 2009, Konami announced they were dropping the game from their release schedule, which put Atomic Games back on the market for a publisher, but nobody would pick it up. 2010, 6 Days in Fallujah was canceled, and less than a year later, Atomic Games went bankrupt. Now, according to interviews with developers, the game was completely done, but just never came out because they never found a publisher willing to deal with the controversy, and once the studio closed down, well, the dream was dead. At least at the time. Let's fast forward all the way to now. Suddenly announced the game was back in development at a new studio called Highwire Games, and they even had a new publisher. The new developer also was made up of a handful of former Bungie employees who worked on the original Halo games as well as Destiny, so they knew what they were doing. Like I said before, the game was allegedly completely done back in 2009, but obviously it needed to be updated for a 2021 release. The game was once again getting a lot of pushback for its content, but in response to that, the game's publisher responded by saying they did not want the game to be about politics or about whether or not the US should have been in Iraq in the first place. Rather, the game is about the people on the ground and what they went through as people. Now, I don't want to get too into details of the game because that's kind of the thing that starts flame war, so I'm going to leave the debate up to you guys in the comments. This video is about the game and the game alone. So let's talk about it. What kind of game is it? Well, it's a tactical shooter in structure, but a survival horror game in tone. The director described it as a non-traditional survival horror game, while the gameplay is going to be that of a first-person tactical shooter. The devs also said this will be the most authentic military shooter to date, and to tell these military and civilian stories with the integrity that they deserve. The gameplay will be broken up, I guess, with documentary footage of the battle to give more context to what's going on. They also said certain atrocities that happened during the conflict would not be part of the gameplay, but they will be touched on during the documentary segments. The levels, they're all procedurally generated, meaning no two playthroughs will ever be the same for you. The devs wanted to make the game as unpredictable as possible, just like real-world combat, so each new run will have a completely new layout and enemy spawns. The game will also be heavily squad-based, featuring tons of commands to give your AI teammates, such as breaching rooms, laying down suppressive fire, planting charges, and a whole lot more. The game's website also alluded to there being some kind of multiplayer mode, although details are scarce. This is going to be a single-player game, first and foremost. So, when is it coming out? That's the question. According to the developer and the publisher, they are set for a 2021 release. They have not given an exact month yet, but most likely Q4, maybe around October 1st to December 31st. But if you ask me, I think they're waiting to see when the next Call of Duty and Battlefield games are coming out, and they'll schedule their game accordingly. After all, we know there's a new COD and a new Battlefield coming out in Q4 of 2021, and the last thing I want to do is sandwich 6 Days in Fallujah in between those two juggernauts. I'm guessing they're going to wait to see when COD and Battlefield are launching, then they'll schedule the game's launch to be maybe a few weeks or months away from that smackdown. As for the platforms, it's currently unclear where the game is going to be playable. We know it's coming to PC, and we know the team does want to bring it to both current and next-gen consoles, but with how many recent games have had issues on previous-gen hardware, I'm not sure that version is going to come out. When you're making a super hyper-realistic tactical shooter, you want to be as clean as possible so you don't break the immersion. With how many problems the older consoles are having, I wouldn't be shocked if those versions are dropped. So the devs are planning on bringing it to consoles, but don't be surprised if it ends up just being next-gen only. And there you have it, my friends. That is everything we know right now about 6 Days in Fallujah. Let me know if it has your interest, if you think it's going to be something good, and I'll see you soon.